I thought we'd start tonight with a prayer. With a prayer. There's so much going on in the world, and so let us pray. May there be an end to the fires on the West Coast, in California, in Oregon, and Washington. May those who've suffered from hurricanes and natural disasters, those who lost their homes to fire, those who have become a climate refugee, may God hold you, may God love you, may God support you. May all of us who are suffering with this most difficult year, with the virus, with our work, with emotions and struggles with our body, may we all be held in the highest light. The highest light. May rains come to California and Oregon and Washington. May things calm down in this world, this most difficult year. This is our prayer, Lord. Come into our hearts and lead us, guide us. Show us a greater way to live in harmony with each other and harmony with the natural world. It's nice to see everyone here. It's good to see you all. Just a quick announcement. I really injured myself pretty bad this last week, and I didn't get to any of my email or very little of it. And when I did check in, I was receiving all sorts of bizarre requests. Some people were writing me emails in different languages, which I don't even know what to do with. I don't even know how to begin to know what to do with that. So forgive me, I only speak English. I think there was emails coming in like in French and Spanish and maybe Slavic or Ukrainian, if that's a language. Again, excuse me if I don't know. So if you're going to write me, write me in English, and then keep in mind, I'm just a one-man show. I have an assistant who helps out every now and then, and but I just can't get to all the requests. And especially this last week, because I threw a rib out and I tore my intercostal muscles, whatever those are, my stomach muscles. And so I was in tremendous pain just breathing. And so anyways, forgive me for being human and not being able to keep up. And, when you reach out for support and the people you reach out to, they can't help because they're too busy or they're, having their own experience. I encourage you to call upon God, to call upon the greatest force of love, of compassion in this universe. Call upon God and know and trust that she hears you, that she hears your prayers. Trust this. It's wonderful if you have a teacher who's able to meet you and take care of you and, show you the way. It's wonderful if you have a good therapist, a counselor, a chiropractor. It's wonderful if you have a hot spring, right next door that you can just go and jump in anytime. It's feeling, that you need just a warm hot spring to get into. But we don't always have what we need here on planet Earth. We just don't. Life can be quite difficult, quite pressing. So I encourage you to call upon God. Invite her to come into your heart, your mind, your soul, and to hold you. To hold you. And if she doesn't give you what you want, if life does not give you what you want, if your teacher does not give you what you want, I encourage you to keep looking, to look elsewhere, to look elsewhere, and to even trust that there is a plan here for your life. And some of us, when we're in the pits of hell, it doesn't seem like there's a plan. It just seems like we're lost or we've been abandoned. And I'll say this, I don't want to speak for God, but it does appear as if sometimes God does abandon us. And the word I said there, the key word was, it appears as if that's the case. And I'm going to invite you to imagine or examine or inquire if there could possibly be a reason for that. Possibly be a reason. The times I felt most abandoned by God, after I made it to the other side, not during, but after I made it to the other side, I see that God was teaching me unconditional love for myself, teaching me and reminding me that I had unconditional strength and indestructibility about me. Now, in the moment of it, I was screaming profanities at God. And so don't think that I was sitting there all holy during those moments. I certainly was not. And so if you are in one of those moments and you're on your knees and you're surrendering and surrendering and surrendering and possibly screaming profanities at God, at the path, at your teacher or teachers, I was there once too. I was there once many times, many times. And so I didn't make this world and I didn't make the rules of it. I would have made this world much different. Much different. But I do encourage you, if you do fall into the pit of despair, do not lose hope. Do not lose faith. I can remember when my teacher said these words to me, and I wanted to slap him. I wanted to scream at him and say, life is not fair. And that's the truth. Life is not fair. I had my 6-year-old telling me life wasn't fair. And I said, you're right. It's not. It's not. But there is an intelligence here, a great intelligence that we may not understand in this moment. We may not understand it in this lifetime. But eventually, we'll fall into unity with this. Eventually, we will. And so I invite you to trust in that. To trust that there is something greater if you fall into the pits. And so my heart's with each and every one of you. And again, my deepest apologies that I just can't keep up with the amount of email I get, and especially when I myself I get hurt, get injured. I was even looking at my injury this week and looking up at God saying, I have so much work I'm supposed to be doing now. And I just heard the voice of God say, let me be with you, Craig. Let me be with you during this time. You need some time. So I said, okay. And then I argued a little bit. Then I said, okay, again. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating when our body doesn't work. It's frustrating when we, are being attacked, or we don't have a home, or, there's a massive wildfire, just over the hill. I was greatly saddened to see that. My family and I, we were looking at moving to Oregon last year. And so we went and visited the Ashland area. And I was looking at houses, and then we looked at these two little towns next to Ashland. And it broke my heart because of these beautiful little towns on the hillside with vineyards and, big farms. And we were wanting to move somewhere a little bit warmer than where we are at, where the growing season's a little longer, and wanted to have a little farm and some property. As the area that I looked at, it's just completely wiped out. Like all the houses we looked at are gone. It's heartbreaking to see that, all these homes, whole neighborhoods and towns had been wiped out, And so it's a tough year for many of us here on planet Earth. It's a tough year. And this climate change and the struggle that we're all having together. Life is telling us we need to learn how to live differently. It's crucial. It's crucial. Have you seen the fires in, Marin County, and, all San Francisco's covered in smoke. LA's covered in smoke. It's just brutal. It's heartbreaking to see this. It's become undeniable. The pain and the suffering. And so we can ask, well, what is our job? What is our role? How can we live in alignment with Mother Nature? Can we consume less? Consume less. Can we love more? Can we show up more? Can we be beacons of peace in this time of insanity? And so anyways, it's nice to see you all here. And I see Richard has a question. It always makes me smile. That Richard's the one asking questions for us all. I do have a number of emails to get to, and of course, you're welcome to leave me something in the comment section. But yeah, Richard, what's on your mind today?
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Yeah, Craig, I'd like to talk about awakening and the body, which is just a really rich topic that, year-long courses could be taught on. For me recently, with Kundalini, massive energy congestion, which manifests somatically as well. I can feel it as tension and
Yeah.
pain. And I've been learning for years how to be with those and relax, and that's constantly deepening in really useful and effective ways. I mean, it's tremendous. um, and I recently had just kind of another breakthrough into the next layer of the onion kind of thing. It's been wonderful, and it just like sparked like, wow, awakening in the body. These things are so very linked. Even though in non-dual circles we have people talking about transcending the body all the time, and I think there's a tremendous truth to that. I don't want to like downplay that. There's also a ton of people probably like not totally in, kind of floating halfway in, halfway out. So I just love to hear about the relationship between awakening and the body, and even along like the farther progression. Like, how do you experience your body now, and these kinds of things? So, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's That's a big question. In a lot of the monastic cultures and traditions, there was, just an ignoring of the body, an ignoring of the mind, ignoring of the emotional nature, ignoring of the psyche. And, if you follow that path, it will lead you to the transcendent reality. And it's a beautiful reality. But, I was always curious about, well, what is oneness? Is oneness inclusive or is it exclusive? And so with this question, it became very clear that how could oneness not include everything? How could it not include everything? And so in that exploration of everything, well, we are given a body, we're given a mind, we're given an emotional nature. And, again, we can transcend all three and we can step into peace very quickly. But then we oftentimes have a life that's disconnected from earthly reality, but deeply connected to transcendent reality. Again, like that's kind of the old model. The way Aurobindo taught it, which I deeply appreciated, which was much more inclusive. That basically your thinking mind was an evolutionary mind. So we once had a purely animal mind that was just pure instinct, pure fight, flight. And then eventually that evolved into having a rational mind. It's a beautiful thing if you live in the dark ages, to start to step into the age of reason, because the rational mind is waking up in the collective. But then eventually, there's a mind that comes after that. The awakened mind, the intuitive mind. The super mind might be another way that Aurobindo spoke about it. In this mind, it has a radically different experience. The fabric of it is emptiness. The thoughts that arise in it are intelligent. And see, this is just one example of how, this experience of what we are can be upgraded, where we can grow into something greater. And so my relationship with the body is that the body is divine. It's divine, and we are evolving out of having an animal body into, say, a human body. And we're evolving out of a human body into a light body. And so one of the ways you see the evolution of the human body is, I'm not much of a runner, but I've heard all these people talk about the 5-minute mile. Like no one thought that, we could run. Is it a 4-minute mile, Danny? Is it 4 now, or was it 5? It was 5 before, wasn't it? Or was it 4 before? Okay, the 4-minute mile. Okay, thank you guys. The 4-minute mile. Like no one thought you could, beat the 4-minute mile. And back, the fella who wrote that book Unbroken, or who that book was written about, he broke the 4-minute mile. He was like one of the first ones. He was an Olympic a racer, and he ended up in a Japanese concentration camp. It's a horrific story, but it's also a story of great inspiration. And so he was the ones who pushed the limits of the body in a physical way. And now, like when I was a kid, actually when in my 20s, they started to have these things called the X Games, where people were pushing the limits of the human body. and all these extreme sports came out. And it's just another jump in evolution. You know, when I was a kid, there was Evel Knievel, and he did these silly jumps on dirt bikes. And now they do things on dirt bikes that, you know, you can't even imagine is possible. And so we're pushing the limits. So there's something inherent within life, especially conscious life, to push the limits of what's possible. And so with Kundalini awakening, we're pushing the limits, say, of the animal body, and we're inviting it to quickly evolve into an upgraded human body, and then quickly inviting that to evolve into a light body, where you experience your body not as flesh, but literally as light, And so what is my experience of this? I have a very strange experience with my body, because sometimes I'll feel it just, you know, like half of me will just turn into light and or turn into emptiness, and I'll just experience myself, say, purely as light, say from the waist down. Now that happened to me. It was pretty early on the path. I can remember I was just sitting alone in my apartment, and it just felt as if the absolute was actually from my waist down, and it just went into the earth and merged as the earth. And it was very perplexing, because normally when we think of the absolute, we think of it as up here. We tend to think of the absolute as this transcendent realm. But I can remember when I felt it wake up in my body, and I actually like reached down and just touched my body, because I wanted to make sure my legs were still there. I mean, I still saw them, of course, you know. I thought, well, what's happening here? And God was giving me this glimpse of what's possible. Now, for those of you who show up in the Wednesday night meditation, oftentimes I do the Skanda chant, but I also do the Ramalinga Swamigal mantra. So Ramalinga was this great saint who lived in South India, and you know, he was in such an illuminated state that his body just literally became light, and he just walked around during his lifetime as this light body, that he could even go out at nighttime and light up the area. You know, like after their meditation class, he would walk his students back on the trail, and the trail would be illuminated by his presence. And you know, you could say, oh well, that's just, you know, some Indian mythology or whatever, or you could say no, that God is here on earth, and God has a plan for this world, an evolutionary world, where we grow into something greater. I mean, we can obviously look out and see evolution, you know, throughout, you know, millennia. So can we imagine that evolution is happening in our soul, in our body, in our mind, in our emotional nature? I mean, it's happening everywhere. It's happening so fast. You know, I'll say something a little bit silly and un-PC, but you have to watch what you say nowadays, because we're always offending someone, because our speech, like our emotional intelligence, our consciousness, being conscious of other people, it's growing so quickly. None of us can keep up, you know. You know, I think I said last year that, and it was actually a couple of years ago, my daughter said, Dad, you can't say homeless anymore. You have to say people experiencing homelessness. And, you know, there's something more gentle about that. You know, when I was a kid, you know, we used to call the homeless hobos, you know, and I can even smile a little bit, because I've been borderline a hobo myself. I've hung out with people who identify with the hobo culture, and say that with pride. And so I don't mean any disrespect, but I've lived on the road before and, hung out with guys who lived on trains and all that kind of stuff. But not to get off on a tangent there, but everything is growing at an exponential rate. And so with Kundalini awakening, basically it's this tremendous amount of light waking up in your body, and it's illuminating your 7 chakra centers. It's illuminating we'll use some Buddhist language here, the 10,000 nadis. It's illuminating it. It's like turning, all the cylinders on, all the lights on in your being. And things can get quite strange, quite bizarre. Some days I'll flip-flop back and forth between feeling a very flesh body, a very heavy body, and then something will just, all of a sudden transition into the most exquisite bliss or freedom or light. And it's very confusing because you're not in charge of it. And so the name of the game is surrender. The name of the game is being gentle with your body, with your form, and being able to listen and see, what does your body need? So today, because my body was healing and I could feel like, I could actually walk again today, I thought, I want to go on a hike. And so I started a hike, and I realized I was pushing it. And so my body said, just go lay down. And so I laid down under some ponderosa pines, and I started to feel a little bit of sadness unravel from my belly, and I had no idea even what it was about. And then I felt, these rushes of light and emptiness. And so again, it's all about you listening. The mistake a lot of people make on the path of Kundalini is they force it, and they do lots of intense pranayama breaths to try to get a lot of light pushing through the body, but it's coming from a place of control or manipulation. And, with Kundalini, it's, God is giving birth in you. And so can you do what a good pregnant lady does? She goes with the flow. She says, okay, my body's going to tell me what to do, so I'm going to listen to that. Life is telling me what to do. I'm listening to that. And so you open yourself to this movement. You listen to it. And a lot of people, they misunderstand this teaching, but often I tell people to listen to the voice of God in you. And people are often listening for like the big booming voice of God, the angelic voice. But oftentimes God just speaks to us through these little flows of energy. And to listen to that and to follow them. Like I'm always opening new worlds, or rather God's opening new worlds in me. But I listen. I might feel like a little wave of something go through me. And I'll stop. I'll say, what is this? What is this gentle flow? And there'll be a little door there, like an energetic door that I can open. And it'll open into a new realm. And when you surrender into that realm, that becomes a quality of your consciousness. So say, for example, I opened into, one day I opened to bliss, but then the next day I noticed a different kind of bliss, more of an amriti bliss. It means it comes with a nectar, an immense sweetness and exquisiteness. So I feel into that. And then just gently walk into it. And then I start to feel it in my fingertips, and the bottom of my feet, my spine, and my belly. And again, none of this is stuff I'm creating. It's just stuff God is showing me. My teacher used to do this to me. He just walked me through one heaven realm and then the next heaven realm, the next heaven realm. I say, I can't keep up, David. Can't keep up with this. He said, oh no, you'll get the hang of it, you know. And so you just open and see what's there. But again, it's not forcing, it's not grasping at any of it, because God's dropping it in my lap. I'm not going looking for it. But if there's something dropped in my lap, I say, well, what is this? There must be a reason it's showing up right here in this moment. Now, that being said, the only caution I'll have is the only realms I try to not explore are the psychic and the astral, because you can just get really lost in those realms. So when, you know, darker worlds or strange worlds, bizarre worlds come to me, I just kind of just gently say no and just, you know, stay out of those realms. And, you know, that's worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone. Some people get sucked into those realms, and I assume there's something there for us to learn. But again, yeah, that's the only caution that I have. If God's showing you something, see what it's about. See what's there. See what the possibility is. It's often something so unimaginably beautiful or pristine or empty. It's like, how did the Buddha discover emptiness? Through opening this door. How did Christ discover, or Jesus discover Christ consciousness? Through opening a door. And these worlds are available to us. They weren't just for the Buddha. They weren't just for Christ. So, Richard, was that helpful? Yeah, good. Okay, let's see. Here's a question from Lisa. It says, Craig, I've been practicing Kundalini. It absolutely makes sense. It absolutely makes the entire truth realm. I'm having trouble, Lisa, with your English here. Let me see if I can figure this out. I've also been feeling those dark moments coming from nowhere, the emptiness in the belly, the heartbreaking pain. Is it some kind of control coming from the madness around? Yeah, it's a good question, but it does help. However, I could stay in the Kundalini practice for a long day, but I need to live the life and face. Yeah, so one of the things, Lisa, that I'd like to respond to in your comment is spiritual practice is meant to eventually be a way of life. And by that, I mean not monastic practice. You know, like I have, I have kids at my house. I just had my older daughter over, and I have a 6-year-old in the house. And so I'm not just sitting there on the couch all day, just meditating while my wife is taking care of all of us. That's not what I'm doing. I'm running around with the kids. And, when my 6-year-old's screaming at me to play ping pong, and I've had enough of ping pong, I'm taking some deep breaths. And, that's a moment for me to be compassionate and say, okay, Daddy will play some more ping pong. Daddy will play some more. When I'm out in the yard fighting with the raccoon because he's coming and been eating up all of our vegetables, I'm trying to figure out a way to compassionately chase a raccoon or a bear out of my yard, so that, we can still have some fresh organic food in the garden. And so we want our practice to be a way of life. So it's not just that, I'm sitting there focusing on the light and the energy all day. I'm inviting, as soon as I get up, I'm inviting the light, the energy, the compassion to flow through me, to do my life for me, to live my life for me, to be me, to be me. Yeah, I like I like the way that sounds. For it to be me, for it to come into my human self and to transform it, to speak through it, to act through it, to live through it, to love through it. That's what I'm inviting. And sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. And so, getting back to your question, sometimes you have those moments while you're sitting where darkness seems to come from nowhere, and it's heartbreaking pain. Yeah. And so this is very common. One of the things that Kundalini does is it illuminates. I guess all light, all spiritual light illuminates, whether it's Kundalini or coming from above or coming from within. It's going to illuminate the darkness. And when it illuminates the darkness, and by darkness in this moment, I'm just speaking about the old aspects of our psyche. So when it illuminates the darkness, you might feel depression all of a sudden. You might feel sadness. So I have this experience still where I'll just be sitting, home alone on the couch. All of a sudden I'll feel a wave of panic come over me. I was like, what is this? What is this? And, in a sense, it's God lighting up somewhere that's deeply unconscious within my body, or or God is lighting up something deeply unconscious in the collective unconscious. So it's either something within me, something within the collective. At some point, those become one and the same. And so you might see these things, you might feel these things, you might have dread just come over you. And so, can you respond with love in that moment? Can you respond with clarity? Sometimes, if it's anxiety, the response is, can I just stay sane and not believe in this feeling, and yet meet it completely and totally with love? With love. And so that's the invitation. Whether you're walking down the street, whether you're with your children, whether you're sitting on the cushion, is to be able to meet it. And if you can stop and give it your full attention, beautiful. If you're in the midst of something, sometimes giving it your full attention means you're simply breathing more deeply. Breathing more deeply. Moving a little bit more slowly. Being a little bit more patient with yourself. Oftentimes people who have very busy lives, they tell me they can't stop. They can't, they have to race. Say, okay, before you send the next email, can you just take 3 more breaths? And before you go and engage with your kids or while you're speaking to them, can you speak to them just a little bit slower? Just a little bit. When you slow things down, mindfulness increases. Awareness deepens. And oftentimes you see, oh, I have the power of choice here in the midst of what I'm perceiving as hell. I have the power of choice here. Not to believe, not to take the bait of my own unconsciousness or the unconsciousness of another. And that was last week's big teaching, was not to take the bait. And I thought it'd be nice to continue that, this week. To continue playing with this question of how do I take the bait? Whether it's from the news media, whether it's from social media, whether it's from our friends on the Twitter or whatever it is, or the Facebook or the YouTube, or whatever way we're taking the bait. I saw these silly things pop up on my YouTube feed, and it was hunters, and they were hunting Antifa. And they were like little 20-second videos or something. And one day at was sitting at lunch and I took the bait. And I watched the video, and some redneck fellas, were ready to hunt some protesters from Portland or whatever. And I thought, oh, this is silly. I took the bait and was a part of their, I was a part of their joke. But, just to look at, how do you take the bait? Sometimes it's, you have an addiction and, you're still holding on to that one last cigarette. And your mind's telling you, I just need to hold on to it. I just need to keep it here in the house. But that's the bait there. You need just to throw that thing away, throw it in the toilet, flush it down the toilet. I've often told the story of one of my old best friends. He struggled with the addiction of smoking, and we were all on a raft trip together, and someone else was smoking, so he started smoking. And when we at the end of the whatever it was 4-day raft trip, getting off the Chama River, we were gassing up the truck on the way home, and he ran out and ran into the convenience store and bought himself a pack of cigarettes, started smoking one, and then quickly threw them away in the garbage can. And then we started to drive away, and he's screaming at me to stop. And then he jumps out of the car and runs and digs them out of the trash. It's like, okay, don't take the bait, don't take the bait. Just throw them away. Throw them away. Throw them away. If it's your not neurotic mind, don't believe the thoughts. Say no to them. Say, no, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to be unconscious. If we want to be free, we cannot allow our unconscious nature to have all of our power. The doorway to freedom is a doorway of power. Most people think of freedom as coming through grace, and it does. But in order for this freedom to become abiding, we must claim our power. We must claim it. Not willpower, but our spiritual power. And this comes from knowing which voice to listen to, which action to follow. Which action to follow. So, again, the question, are you taking the bait? Can you identify the bait? Can you identify? Do you have awareness of where you tend to habitually drop the ball or habitually get confused? Or habitually let yourself cheat or sneak or give in? Can you distance yourself from the bait? Can you distance yourself? So that's where you claim your power. You saying, I'm going to get myself some distance from this. What would life be like if I was free from this? Just to imagine life where you're free from this. Recently, I started something new. Some people might think it's silly, but I started jiu-jitsu. And I immediately hurt myself. And there's a game that life plays with us when we start something new. Whether it's a new yoga practice, a new meditation practice, we might have an enjoyable first time, but then the second time, often, there's a little bit of a disaster. The class is canceled. Or, if we're beginning meditation practice, so we say, okay, I'm going to get up every day at 6 and meditate for an hour. So you have one morning that's really good. The next morning is just terrible. It's a terrible meditation. And so then the mind says, let's give up. This is no good. Let's try something different. And so I noticed when I got hurt that there was a voice in my head that said, yeah, this is what happens. And this is what happens when you try something really physically hard and you're 65 years old, Craig. I'm not that old, but my wife, she laughs at me. She says, you shouldn't go back. And I say, no, I'm going back. Because I know it's true for me to go back. I can feel it in me. But oftentimes there's a little bit of sabotaging or a little bit of disaster, and that's the test. The test, do you really want this? Do you really want this? Will you show up even if it's hard, even if it's difficult? Do you want this? To be honest, I could care less about jujitsu. The human ego and my personality. But there's something within me. I have a warrior in my soul, and my body is wanting me to be more physical. And there's a reason behind it. I haven't discovered it yet. But eventually I will. I will. And you find that sometimes life speaks to you and asks you to do sometimes crazy things. And if it's true, later you'll find the intelligence. If it's false, you'll see, oh, I took the bait. I took the bait. But I can feel there's something true in this for me calling me. To be honest, I'd rather just sit at home roll around on my yoga mat than get beat up, by some of my old friends. Ironically, if any of you remember my story from last week, the bully in the lunchroom who got the whole lunchroom, like 200 kids, to make fun of me. He's the man now who I'm studying jujitsu with. And so I'm being called there. Sometimes life plays these games with us. Gives us a fun drama with a twist. And maybe I'm not even doing this for myself, but doing this rather for him. I don't know, but I'm going to follow it. So, here's a question from Swati. Swati, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Kindly advise how to manage emotional sensitivity during Kundalini awakening. For some of you who don't resonate with the word Kundalini, we can just call it spiritual awakening. Kindly advise how to manage emotional sensitivity during spiritual awakening. So as we wake up, basically a light is being shined within us. And through this light, you start to see many more things. You start to feel many more things. You start to experience more things. And so the first thing I like to do is, if we're ever having a thought about how to manage, I invite you to get out the eraser and erase that word manage. Because manage oftentimes is just us trying to control, the ego trying to control. So what spiritual awakening demands of you is basically that you become a bigger individual. So the realization of your bigness, that happens internally, where you step back and you realize what's here is so strong, is so powerful, is so loving, is so bright. But then the trick becomes, how do I live this? So how do I become a big human being? If you ever sit with a great master, I've sat with many, and I normally notice as soon as I walk in the room, my voice starts trembling because I can feel their sheer power, their immensity. I get really nervous, like, oh my God. because they've stepped into their bigness. They've claimed it. They've owned it, not just in a inner way, an absolute way. They've also stepped into it in a relative way. And so you're going to have all kinds of things that happen through the awakening process. Emotional sensitivity is one of those things. And so the great question is, just with anything, is can you learn to breathe into it? Can you lean into it? Can you notice it doesn't kill you to feel more? Our ego has this voice that says feelings can kill me. Now, I'd like to say there's zero truth to that. Feelings can't kill us. So on an absolute level, feelings cannot kill you. On a relative level, if you believe in your feelings, you can work yourself up into a panic attack. You can work yourself up into a heart attack. So they can kill you in a relative way if you believe the feelings that arise in your body. So the thing that I had to learn how to do was to grow and become bigger and get comfortable with feeling more. Get comfortable with feeling more. You know, some of my rock climbing friends are guys who have tattoos from literally from their face, literally their face to, you know, to their feet. And so me, I'm not into tattoos, but these guys, apparently they got comfortable with feeling more. And so they could step into the tattoo parlor and get more and more ink. They got comfortable with it. They were able to tolerate more. That's a silly example, but with emotional sensitivity, we are taught to do the same. Can you tolerate more? Can you breathe into more? Can you relax more? This is the skill of mastery. Can you relax more? Can you get comfortable with feeling more? This is one of the hardest things to sales pitches on the path is, can you be comfortable feeling more pain? The ego says no. And the heart, because its nature is love, actually moves in the direction of pain. When you do that, the fight or flight response starts to dissolve. You actually start to move into the realm of what's might be called no self, because you're not resisting. Here's a question from Andrew. Hi, Craig. Sorry about your injury. I hope you heal soon. Me too. Thanks, Andrew. Just to build off your answer to the previous question, what do you mean by evolving from an animal body to a human body? Are you talking about ape to human? That's funny. In a way, yes, I'm speaking about ape to human, but what I'm really speaking about is, so within human beings, we have such a strong fight or flight response. You know, let's just look at, say, the fight response. So in the past, when we didn't agree politically, we got out swords or arrows or clubs and just beat the hell out of each other, killed each other, would be one way of doing it. Now we just might get on Twitter and just start tweeting a bunch. I'm calling this tweeting, but I think it's typing away or something. And we go to, say, intellectual warfare with each other. And so that's one of the ways that, you know, we evolved. So we evolved out of, you know, beating each other with clubs now to publicly shaming each other and forming tribal warfare online with our mind. And so that's one of the ways we've evolved out of, you know, just being a tribe, like a guerrilla tribe, where we go into the other pack of gorillas and rip each other's arms off. Now we tweet about each other. And so we're inviting, you know, a greater type of warfare with less violence in theory. So in as we evolve beyond that, say into a light body, if someone disagrees with us, we might send them love. We might send them love. We might listen to them. Listen. So instead of punching them, we listen more deeply and fully. We try to understand. So that's probably the human quality of listening. And then the spiritual quality would be sending them love and listening from compassion and reflecting upon what they said. Said, is there something here I can learn from? Is there something here I can learn from? And so I hope that that makes sense. And even the body itself is evolving. You know, who knows? Like if you look at, say, I'll use this word, stereotypical alien body, they tend to have a giant head, you know, connoting a massive brain and a real skinny form, you know, where they don't need, you know, big muscles anymore. So they've let go of having, you know, enormous muscles and evolved into a huge brain. I'm not asking you to believe in aliens or anything like that, but we're evolving. We are evolving. Our consciousness is evolving. Hey, Craig, what are your thoughts on how important feeding our body and our mind is on the path with certain foods we eat and the information we watch on TV, for example, watching action movies, etc.? How have you found balance, or do we have to let go fully? Yeah, I mean, I can make the diet one real simple. I eat whole foods diet. That's, you know, mostly vegan, you know, / vegetarian. If I eat junk food, I feel like I'm poisoning my body. My wife and I were joking a lot. I was giving her I was giving her a hard time this week because she volunteers and works at my daughter's school. And she went around to all the teachers and said, is there anything I can get you? Can I stock your refrigerator with something? And, you know, all the teachers asked for, you know, like Coca-Cola and this type of thing, like soft drinks or soda pop, whatever you call it. And like, we literally haven't bought a soda pop. And I mean, hell, I haven't bought a Coca-Cola in maybe since I was 14 years old. So that's, that's a long time ago. And so, you know, I'm not going to put garbage in my body. It's not good for you. It's not good for your consciousness. It's not good for our planet. And so can you treat your body with love? Can you see it as a temple? And so the same with ingesting what you watch on TV. And so to be conscious of it, of course. You know, I spoke with someone this week, and forgive me, I can't remember who, but they told me they grew up in a house and their parents were always watching like horror movies. And they just felt utterly traumatized as a little child growing up in this house, receiving all these violent, brutal images. And so I don't like to let, you know, any of that stuff in, any of that stuff. But I will admit, have I seen some action movies? Yeah. Yeah, there's something that I like about a movie where someone overcomes great obstacles. And so occasionally I'll watch a movie with violence in it, but in theory, it's going to be a movie where, you know, they are overcoming something and bringing forth something greater. They're fighting against an enemy who, you know, truly is worse. And so anyways, put good stuff in you. You find it just makes your vibration softer. Whereas if you put a lot of heaviness, heavy vibrations in you, you just have to take them out later. The other thing too is we have to keep in mind that our body is ridiculously sensitive. And so when we see traumatic things, those things literally are traumatizing our cells. And then we have to do a lot of healing work to help our body feel safe again, to feel safe. Now here's a question from Thane. Craig, do you think you could sometime do a guided meditation geared towards someone who is experiencing extreme fear of the relative type world? Yeah, Thane, send me an email. I'll see if I can put together that. And if I don't do it, send me another email. So my inbox has gotten full. Here's a question. Hey, Craig, some people advise cloaking ourselves in light before leaving the house if we are sensitive to negative energies or debris in a room around us. I oftentimes get overwhelmed and stop breathing. How to respond to this if I can't leave the situation? Is cloaking in the light okay, or is there a downside to doing that? Yeah, cloaking ourselves in the light. I love it. It's also important to carry crystals in your front pocket and back pocket to ward off negative energies. I'm just kidding. Yeah, cloaking yourself in light is great. Sometimes I'll burn sage, if I'm feeling real heavy, and just to clear the air. But one of the ways I cloak myself in the light, say for example, if I'm going somewhere where there's some heavy vibrations, and I'm feeling vulnerable. Normally, I don't need to do this if I'm not feeling vulnerable. Let me see if I can say that better. If I'm exhausted, oftentimes, you can take on things. You can become an energetic sponge to planet Earth. If you're connected to your strength, you normally don't need to cloak yourself in the light. But if you're feeling somewhat less than 100%, I encourage you just to envision yourself literally like sitting, standing, walking in a ball of light. And it's translucent. And so any negative energies, they just gently bounce off it. But also the love from your heart can still shine out in all directions. And so, yeah, if you need to protect yourself, that's a good way. But a more powerful way to protect yourself is to do your healing work. And so if you have a place within your body, within your form, where you feel as if there is a psychic hole, and by that I mean a place where you feel really weak, where you're bleeding energy, a place where you feel like you've been absolutely victimized by life, where life's beat you up and you have an open wound there. It's important that you breathe into that center and you meet it with an absolute love and you do your healing work there. If we're not strong energetically, if we have these holes within our consciousness, then to the extent that we have holes within us is to the same extent that we can receive and can be overwhelmed by negative energies. And that's not an absolute rule, but there's a great truth there. I lived with massive holes within my psyche for many years on the path, and it just felt like I was spinning in the mud. I was taking on so much all the time. I was so sensitive, couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And my teacher kept pointing this one thing out to me, and I kept looking at it and saying, I don't see what you're talking about. After 5 years of him pointing at this one particular thing, I began to see, oh yeah, there's something there. There's something there that needs some love. And I thought I was doing my healing work there. I thought I had already done it. I thought I had done enough. But it was just something I couldn't see at that time. And so sometimes these things take time. But one of the things that can help you with this on a relative level is, say, martial arts training, qigong training, doing a really strong yoga practice. where you feel strong in your body. There's something that happens when you just feel strong in your body. Your psyche starts to feel strong as well. Not always, but sometimes it can be quite helpful. And of course, vice versa. When you do your psychological work, oftentimes your body starts to feel strong again. But if you're stopping to breathe, that shows that there's a great deal of insecurity there that needs to be met with love. So there's something within you that's saying, hey, I don't feel as if there's any ground under my feet. I'm not feeling safe. I mean, if it's really bad, I recommend leaving, but you said you can't leave. And so God's given you a great challenge here. A great challenge where you're being thrown into the, what's been called the refiner's fire. Sometimes God gives us something that seems like it's an unfixable, where you're screwed one way and you're screwed the other. But I'm going to invite you to trust that there's an intelligence behind that. And there's a third way. A third way. Okay, beautiful question. Here's a question from Derek. Craig, I felt my aura completely torn and filled with foreign energies. Yeah, Derek, I've been getting a lot of questions about this. And sometimes if you work with a good, skilled energy healer, they can help you with this. So the first thing I say is try everything I said, to the person before. But if you feel like you're being attacked by energies and entities and this type of thing, and the psychological healing doesn't work, getting in your body doesn't work, doing martial arts training, this type of thing doesn't work, doing, deep counseling, therapeutic, somatic-based therapy doesn't work, try a good energy healer. And I wish I could recommend one right now, but my friend Cesare, she's good. And I could go on and on about this, but I want to be careful what I say. Sometimes foreign energies are simply pointing out where you have a hole in your psyche, where you have a hole in your energy field. And it's just a sign you have to do deeper work. If it's something, in the psychic realm, astral realm, you might need to get a specialist who works in that type of thing. This is from Sarah. Hi, Craig. Will you speak about feeling trapped and I'm going to butcher this word, and feeling of being caged again? I'm feeling like, metaphorically, I can decorate the cage any way I like, but it's still a cage. Feeling like I'm not who I thought I am, questioning who I am, feeling lost and lonely and lots of fear and anger and frustration. Feel like I can't find my purpose. I try different interests and eventually lose interest again. It's very discouraging. Yeah, Sarah, let me see if I can feel into your question, because you have a lot there. So if you're feeling trapped, oftentimes that's because we're not connected to our heart. We're not connected to our strength. And if you mean physically trapped, then oftentimes that means we're in a relationship that needs some healing work, or we need to leave. Those are two different things: healing work and/or leave. I can decorate the cage any way I like, but it's still a cage. Yeah, so there's something within you that wants to know the true non-dual reality. And so I'm going to invite you, Sarah, to ask, who is it here that witnesses this cage? Who's that? Who is it that witnesses the coming and goings of your mind? Like you said, the feelings, the interests. Who's that one? That's where your answer lies. Who is it that notices the pain or the suffering or the confusion you're in? Can you turn around and see that one? Get to know that one. So oftentimes we have mindfulness of the contents of our mind, but we don't have mindfulness of the one who's mindful. We're not aware of awareness. That's where true freedom lies. That's where true freedom lies. Okay. Just a couple more questions here. A lot of questions this week, and forgive me if I didn't get to yours. Hi, Craig. I was deeply traumatized by my father, so I unconsciously built armor around my heart. That's still there. I cannot fully breathe because of it. But sometimes I still have doubts whether, excuse me, but I've grown in my non-dual understanding and experience and can stay with it for longer periods than before. I have done so many therapies, but sometimes I still have doubts whether the ideal therapy is somewhere over there. Well, you just said it there, my friend. This is Fred. Fred, sometimes we have the demon of doubt. We have the idea that the answer is over there. And so we can just keep chasing and keep grasping. Can you give up doubt and trust that you're on the right path? Can you find something good and stick with it? Can you believe in healing and perseverance? Not doubt. Not doubt. So if you try to heal, but you have doubt in your own healing, you don't heal. It's just like a truck that's stuck in the mud. You're just spinning your tires. And your body needs to know that you will heal. Your body needs to trust. If you're telling your body a story that, you can't heal because you're doubting all the time, your body never fully lets go, and you're going to continue having the armor, and it's going to be difficult to breathe. So I'm going to invite you to walk through the fear of doubt, to give up the idea that there's some ideal anything, and just to open into your experience right here, right now, as it is, and see what's here beyond doubt. Beyond doubt. Hi, Craig. I have some confusion regarding disgust arising during the Kundalini purging process. Sometimes in meditation, when working through emotional releases, it's come to the point of feeling so nauseous. This is an awesome question, that my gag reflexes get triggered. The nausea arises as a result of experiencing head shaking and the release of a block at the top of the neck, and burning sensations in the solar plexus. Also emerges as abdominal churning type of psychological reaction that comes with it. How is this particular feeling related to the solar plexus in the throat? Thank you for your videos. Yeah, sure. So nausea, oftentimes we experience nausea when light comes into us and is burning up things that are untrue, that which is false. I had nausea for years, just like burning nausea in my belly, my throat, solar plexus. When I learned that it was light, I began to trust in it more, fight with it less, resist it less, and then there was less nausea. And so you know we can have all types of bizarre symptoms and experiences during the Kundalini awakening process, the spiritual awakening process. If the transformation goes through the body, that animal body must change. And so you might have all kinds of burning feelings and gagging and this and that. The big thing is the more you trust, the more relaxed your throat will be, the less nausea you will have. But you'll still have a lot of light and heat. So you have to get comfortable with light and heat. So in your throat, can you relax and trust? So in your throat lives your superego. So the more you relax and trust in the intelligence of the process, there's going to be less gagging. The more you relax and trust in your belly, oftentimes through meeting your belly with love, meeting your stomach with love, meeting your body with love, when your body feels safe, oftentimes there's less burning nausea. So if you have a lot of burning nausea, help your body to feel safe. One of the things you can do, and I say this often, is just lay flat in a bed, on a couch, in the grass, the beach, wherever. Place a hand on your heart, hand on your belly, breathing into the pain, breathing into your body. I love you, and it's okay. Again and again, I love you, and it's okay. Hours and hours and hours, holding yourself, loving yourself. I love you, and it's okay. This is what your body needs. When you feel safe, we tend to have less traumatic reflexes and sensations. But when we don't feel safe, or if we feel disgusted, disgust is actually a judgment. So that's showing your superego is involved. If there's disgust there, you know, that oftentimes we clench or we're resisting. We're saying, I don't like this. So can you soften that and say, I accept. I accept what is here before me. And yet I work toward healing. I believe in healing. I believe in the path. I believe I'm a child of God. I believe in something greater. Something greater. Our friend Annette, she brought forward into the link a program that she's done, a therapy she's done called dynamic neural retraining. She swears by it, and so if anyone's interested, check it out. You know, sometimes when we're having intense symptoms in the body, we need to have a new practice and become masterful in this practice. One of the healing arts that I learned was called Jin Shin Jitsu. And that was one that was helpful for me. Some people love Reiki. Some people, they're a massage therapist, and so they just trade massage with their friends. Some people learn something like Nanette did, dynamic neural retraining. And so it can be helpful to try something new on the path every now and then. And so, again, let us pray for rain on the West Coast of the United States. God, will you bring rain? Will you put out these massive fires, please? Please, Lord, this is our prayer. Will you bring a home, Lord, to all those struggling with the experience of homelessness, the experience of fire, the experience of loss? Will you bring a feeling of safety and love and healing to those suffering with mental turmoil, emotional turmoil, physical turmoil, psychic turmoil? Will you bring healing, Lord? This is our prayer. May all beings be held in the highest love, highest light. May our entire planet be brought into alignment to a greater truth, a greater healing, a greater love. This is our prayer. May we be manifestations of light and shine your light and glory in all directions. Amen. It's been so nice to sit with you all this evening. Forgive me if I let you down the last couple weeks. just haven't been able to keep up all the emails. And thank you all for your ongoing support, your love, the donations, sharing your heart with me. And I'll say thank you for sharing your heart with the world. Our world needs your love, your light. Good night, everyone. Bye for now.